So let me just set the base for our discussion today. So the discussion is on cloud and a customized approach towards cloud. So we have our expert panelists over here from diverse industries who will be sharing their knowledge and their journey about cloud. So with that, probably let me just start with a question which will set the context for the entire discussion. So today, most of the organizations have adopted cloud for their digital journey, and everybody is at different stages of cloud adoption. So I'll probably ask the panelists today to share their cloud journey, and in their response, I would request all of you to cover 4 points. One, what is your current cloud strategy? Are you completely on cloud, or you are hybrid, you're on-prem, on-cloud, combination of them? Are you using multiple cloud? So a sense of what's your cloud strategy. Then you can cover why cloud. I think that's an important question to answer and for the audience to know. Was there a business need that you're trying to solve, or was it a fascination of adopting new technology? So what was the reason why we kind of embarked on the cloud journey? What are the benefits that your organization has got in terms of quantifiable measures? If you can give us some numbers, that would be really great. And fourth, since most of us here belong to a regulated entity, I would just want to take sense from you guys whether regulatory compliance is playing any role in either accelerating the cloud journey or kind of making you more cautious towards adopting of cloud. So probably we'll start with you, Basil, and then we will go around the table.
Thanks, Virat. Am I audible?
Yes, it's you.
So in terms of cloud journey, because if you talk about any BFSI segment or any other segment, I think most of us are on the hybrid cloud, because we also have a legacy systems which cannot be directly taken to the cloud. And also it doesn't make any sense to take a legacy applications to the cloud, because cloud was natively designed to have the next generation's technologies like microservice and all that, so that will help the organizations to deploy their product faster, as well as they reduce the cost. Because the cloud, when I was during my early stage, when we were thinking on cloud, the first question was what we will get with the cloud. So like how much the cost reduction it will bring if we start adopting the cloud. So that was the first question when we used to discuss with the management. And I think it also plays a critical role while we move the services to the cloud. So I guess that answers the first questions. In terms of benefits, yeah, because the cloud, you don't have a dependency of infrastructure. So business initially, when we used to have deploy or have any services to be deployed over the on-prem, we used to depend on the hardware or the IT teams to arrange those kind of compute, and then we used to get the application up and running. So the time to market was also getting impacted, because of the cloud that is getting accelerated at much faster level. In terms of compliance role, I think regulators, they are the governance body. They want to protect the organization. Specifically, we all come from the BFSI segment. That is a critical backbone for the Indian economy. So I think the regulators always want to protect this space. So they have a lot of compliance regulations so that whenever the organization is moving to the cloud or adopting any services, not in terms of a cloud, any services, whether it is on-prem or cloud, so that they are protected on the day zero. So I think governance is also acting as a strong supporter in moving to the clouds, or guidance to when we are moving any service to the cloud.
Lovely. Thanks. Hemal, can we move to you, please?
So first of all, am I audible? First of all, good morning to one and all, and thank you for the Quantic for this wonderful platform. So according to me, the successful cloud journey is well planned. So we have our own data centers, and we have created our own private cloud setups. And for this private cloud setup, this will remain there as it is. But for a cloud, we have a clear strategy that for new upcoming clouds, we would want to place ourselves in a position to get best of breed of technology from all the CSP partners. And hence we have chosen the multi-cloud approach. We have started the journey with the AWS, Azure, Google and Oracle. And see, this is not a fascination at all. because we are a conglomerate and we have different businesses in terms of in area of the manufacturing, the finance, we have the mining, the educations, and for new upcoming business, the new strategies are there for agility and the velocity. Every business, new business is required the agility and velocity. Hence, our focus towards the cloud is very much clear. We would for the roadmap for new upcoming business is cloud only. And there are, of course, the tangible and intangible benefit of the adoption of the cloud. I'll give you one example of the HRMS system. So HRMS system generally have the peak workloads twice in a year, one at the mid-year review and at the yearly review. And the similar, the retail, the seasonal retail business is also having the similar kind of the workload. So for such kind of a workloads, if we acquire a cloud, then cloud will definitely provide the cost optimization, the solution. In terms of the regulatories, we have spread across the geographically, and every country have their different regulatories. Hence, we have designed, implemented our enterprise lending zone business-wise segregated to all the regions. We have segregated all the subscriptions to the individual business so that we can deliver the regulatories as well.
Lovely. Dheeraj, from your side.
Yeah. Good morning, all. I hope I'm audible. So, in terms of the cloud strategy, I believe, I agree, or rather, I believe in that we should always stay in hybrid mode. The reason being, if you completely move to the cloud, where as Hemant and the Basil has rightly pointed out, whether you require or not, if you don't strategize that, then it would be, will not be a successful story for your cloud journey. So the hybrid is the one which I believe should be the option. In terms of the why do you move or what are the things that you move to the cloud is something that you have to decide accordingly. So in our case, like we being a general insurance company, getting your the insurance to your customers, you have to make it go online. Now the things are moving more and more online, on mobile friendly and things like that. So that is the reason one of our primary portal is on the AWS cloud. Having said that, why you move to the cloud is because, as Eamon said, that there are times of the year wherein you can't expect the workload, or rather can't expect the traffic on your websites. So that is the time the cloud offers that scalability feature wherein you can simply scale up your applications or the compute or as such. So that's about why you should take that cloud approach. Is again on the regulatory side, I believe IRDA, at least from the insurance sector, IRDA is very specific about all your cloud should be within India region. Other than that, their enforcement basically talks about that the partners that offer your cloud service, again, they should be in India region, and you should be doing a thorough evaluation of these cloud, because you're not sure on the data that they operate, the data that they process, where are they taking that data. So you have to be very careful about the partners who is offering your cloud service. So yeah, that's all.
Great. So I think I will do a short summarization of what I hear from three of you. So Basil talked about time to market. So improvement in time to market is one benefit that you probably envisaged and you're realizing. Hemal talked about flexibility. Some application required to be run only certain period in the year, and you can probably use the cost optimization feature of cloud and flexibility that it provides. And Dheeraj obviously talked about the scalability part, as we grow and certain loads are expected only at a certain point of time. So that scalability is also an offer. Great. Sagat, what's your take apart from this?
Thanks. So morning everyone. With regards to the cloud as a strategy, my experience since I've been into the logistics and the supply chain industry so far, so it has been always a hybrid strategy, because we do have applications which are pretty, I would say, the ones which are written quite some time back, and it would take some time to improvise the stack or improve the technology stack. That is one which itself would then become cloud native. So we are in the journey of doing certain things, but on the storefront, in my current stint, we have seen that some of those apps that we are building, those are cloud native. So those by default go to the cloud. So that's a strategy that we have adopted. Prior to this stint, when I was working with DP World and then prior to that with TVS, so what there was a severe acquisition strategy that we had. So we were growing inorganically by acquiring a lot of companies. So as a result of which we were inheriting a lot of, servers and infrastructure along with them. So as a business case, it was always getting justified that we move everything into cloud rather than having too many infrastructure, too many people to manage that, and have the things under control, and then define what exactly would be the next steps. Again, over there also we had a hybrid cloud strategy wherein we used to have certain components sitting in on-premise, the ones which were the core applications and the ones which were newly getting developed, that those were being as cloud native applications. Now coming to the other point in terms of the benefits, yes, we got the benefit of scalability, flexibility, and then the agility in terms of managing the cloud as well as in terms of deploying the applications, the ones which were being developed on the fly. Coming to the current stint over here, the approach is very clear. It has to be Geo Cloud that we already have, and we are developing all the applications that are there in-house and moving it over there. The ones which are traditionally there, we continue to keep it there unless we have the complete platform stack tested, evaluated, and we do an impact analysis before we will take a call. So there has to be a thorough business case, and then there also has to be an impact analysis that has to be done even before we get into this journey. That would be my recommendation over here. And then coming to the regulatory, obviously we are not so much governed, but however, as a company, what we have taken a call is that everything that sits in GeoCloud has to be monitored closely, and it has to be highly secured, but nothing as such from the regulatory compliances.
Great. I think that was a great insight, and we'll talk more about cloud security as you just pointed out. That's probably our next topic to discuss. So, Krishna Kumar, why don't we hear your journey?
Our journey started as early as 2018-19. We don't have a data center. We are completely on cloud. All applications run on cloud. And our strategy from day one was very clear that we need to move into flexibility and the usual terms which we use. But the most important thing that we wanted to do was remove all kind of physical things which are there. Because and maximize on the usage of the cloud, because whether it is in terms of backups, in terms of CI/CD, in terms of security, in terms of flexibility, in terms of all aspects of business to make it run 24/7, 365. I think that was a move that we planned as early as 2018-19. So by 2019, around this time, we had already moved all our applications to the cloud. And subsequent to that, we found that it is very easy for us to deploy any infrastructure, not more than 2 to 4 hours is the time we require to set up an infrastructure. So that settles one of the most important things. Second important thing, no management. I don't have to do people management. We don't have to do backups. All those things goes away. The third important thing was to get my strategy right on the business and the business applications. All the applications developed at that time was in that cloud native strategy with Web 2.0 and those kind of concepts, which was really important. And the legacy applications were there, though it was a little expensive, but it was worth it because it still solved many of my problems of managing these things out here. So in our digital strategy, we are one of the first and the few people who have actually transformed our entire business using digital strategy. So we were the first to launch, whether it is onboarding on the PMS or onboarding on wealth management or onboarding on NBFCs. We have done all those things as early as 2018-19 when the regulations were still being drafted. We were actually delayed because of the regulations like Aadhaar, which only came as late as 2019-20. Otherwise, we would have been far ahead of times. And today also we are. In terms of business operations also putting in flows, we've already saved about 40-50%. In fact, the numbers have grown from what we were at about, by I can say almost about 70%. The numbers have grown, but our operation size and the business operations has not increased to that kind of a level. Thirdly, the maintenance cost and other things have also been much better. And finally, in terms of security and other things, it's been really good for the simple reason Most of the things are already there. You have the flexibility to select what kind of things you need to do. At the end of the day, the configuration is yours. It's not theirs, but they provide those kind of features which we are able to exploit, add to it, and put these things through. As far as the regulatory requirements are concerned, the regulatory requirements keep changing, and I'm glad that we are the only country in the world. Right from day one, I've been observing it from my early days on the regulations that have been done, whether it's the RBI or SEBI. They have been constantly keeping up with the technology parts as well. And so when they start allowing you to move on cloud, on these kind of setups, that means they've already thought through what the industry is going forward, the industry is moving forward, and what all organizations need to do. So all kinds of those aspects, whether it's in terms of a certification like an ISO or a cloud 20018 certifications, those things which we have already complied with. I think it's a very interesting thing that we've been able to achieve. And the results are there, because in the last 5 years, I could say, 4 years, I could say that zero downtime, availability across all servers, backups. So the numbers speaks for themselves. Yes, you don't, as the CFOs will say, we don't get depreciation and all those kind of things, but at the end of the day, the CAPEX justifies itself from a business standpoint, that availability, flexibility, scalability, integrity, and as well as new things like we used to talk about DevOps. Today it is DevSecOps, which you will come across in a few periods of time. But all these things can be deployed seamlessly in the system is something which I felt is one of the most beautiful things that we could do, and glad that we were able to adopt it, and till today we have no regrets on that.
Lovely, very inspiring, completely on cloud, and managing it very well, very inspiring. Rupendra, can we move to you, and probably you can share your journey.
Good morning, everyone. You can hear me, na? So basically, we are a garment manufacturing company, we are retailer, and we have to fulfill all you people who are sitting here and fast check out all this. So we need 100% cloud, and the cloud is not that cloud which take money and my pocket should get empty. I need Sasta, Sundar, Tikau. This is my mantra, and my CFO and my CEO objective. Business should run 100%, and all will manage on time, because retail mein dikhta hai to bikta hai, otherwise customer will not come. So we have done 100% in cloud, and nothing is manual, all is automated with certified engineers, and we are in private cloud, that is SIFI. And the cost wise, if we say, earlier we were in some different cloud, and when we migrate to SIFI, we save 60% cost and 99.9% uptime. And if anything required for business, within 1 day or 2 days, we get all services. So this is our cloud journey, and last 4.5 years, in COVID also, we managed very well due to private cloud services and without cost increase and all these problems.
Great, and you don't have a complexity to manage a regulator?
No.
Great, lucky one. We'll swap roles probably. Great, so this was broadly, I think we wanted to kind of hear from all our experts regarding their cloud journey, and we'll discuss more as it comes forward. So the next topic I wanted to kind of take up related to cloud was cloud native apps. So I want to kind of focus a couple of questions specifically related to the advantages that you get by adopting a cloud native application, and whether that has changed the way technology team operates today, with newer roles kind of coming up and the newer skill set required to kind of manage such kind of an infrastructure. So probably since Rupendra, you are on completely cloud, the next question probably is to you. So how has cloud native technology helped you in accelerating your digital transformation journey, and whether that has given you tangible benefits, and do you see a change in the org structure because of that? So managing a traditional IT setup and managing a completely cloud IT setup, do you see a difference of skill set requirement, and how are you managing that? So if you can just touch upon areas like site reliability engineering or DevSecOps, as Kishan Kumar mentioned, and how is that helping your organization embrace this new world?
See, earlier we were traditional system, one application development person, one infra person, and this person developed something, they deploy, they say, no, this is the problem of infrastructure, this is the problem of this and that. Now, moving to cloud, we have one dedicated person, that is called PM, and he has to manage, he has to talk to internal team, and whatever development is there, whatever deployment is there, it is a faster and secured, as because we are on the cloud, so these people have to maintain their security policies. So we are in the retail, we have to move fast. So we are getting the benefit compared to earlier development and implementation part. Example, we have recently migrated from old ERP to new ERP, and in 6 month time, we are live, including migration through cloud, through security, through deployment of all server and technologies. So this is the benefit of the cloud and development operation in the cloud scenarios.
Great. Kishan Kumar, since you are also completely on cloud, may I take the opportunity to hear your views around this as well? Specifically around the role part, do you see certain roles changing, and how is that helping you adopt this new world?
No, I think the roles are bound to change. Whatever you're supposed to do previously, you would have a configuration, you would have a data center manager, and all those things just goes away. So I think the most important thing is today you are more application centric, you are more business centric, because you have more time to interact with business with a smaller, leaner, efficient team and knowledgeable team. Because previously you used to have a lot of things which needs to be done, and then you would have different kinds of people. So I think the most important thing is when you plan for a cloud journey, how are you going to organize yourself? That's the most important question that one needs to answer. What are the roles that you are going to define within this organization? So very clearly we have very defined roles within the system, whether it is in terms of application. So whenever you look at an application, you need to see that it is cloud native. Secondly, even the development of that application requires a lot of skill and a lot of time to do that, because every time you start developing an application and when you start deploying that application, there's always a slip, as they say, between the cup and the lip, and that's where the problem comes in, and that's where the security and the vulnerabilities and many of the problems related to efficiencies of the application come up. And that's something which is very important. So we actually went through each of these exercises. We actually eliminated a lot of roles, put up a set of people who can manage, and outsource the whole thing from a configuration point of view. But management still rests with us. The second important thing is on the application side, we actually changed the way the entire application development and application stack needs to look at. We adopted fresh new technologies which will actually get into play, and more of SaaS related products and SaaS related applications which already have transformed, the good ones, so the major ones which are there in the market, and already have certifications for that, whether you're using your VAPT or you're using ISOs or all those kind of certifications. So you have applications which do that. The third important thing is when you are doing internal application development, you already have the setup which is already configured and certified from a security and other aspect. So there is a basic template on which you can drive it. So you don't have to waste 3 months or 2 months doing a VAPT or a security kind of stuff. So your application, when you develop it, is very secure. The fourth important thing, which ideally should have been one, which is basically on the application side, all the inefficiencies of the application get exposed the moment you put on the cloud. That means the speed of the application, the runtime, the data integrity, the data, go to the extent of inserting a data into a table. Sorry, I'm getting into a little detail, but that's a very important point, because if your cloud is not configured properly and you are on separate different chains and your near proximity and all those things are not there between the data centers, you will have a huge impact on your application. Once you have an impact on your application, you normally tend to say it's either a memory problem, you start increasing memory, that means increasing cost. But actually it's not needed. It's actually dependent upon the bus architecture of the cloud, how you have set up the cloud, what kind of integrity tools have been done between in the same setup. Those are important areas which we actually had to look out for. And with that, when you do the CI/CD, it became a clear-cut, clean way of doing things. So you have to have a plan, you have to have a strategy, you have to see how you can actually work on, and then probably that's the best way to look at things.
Great. I think that was a wonderful experience sharing. Since we have now talked about cloud and cloud native, let's talk about something which lies beneath that, the fundamentals, the foundation layer of cloud, which is data centers. So Sagat, probably the next question is to you. So the traditional data center setup, do you think that would require to go through a change or a modernization to support cloud native and cloud deployments? And we hear today data centers are modernizing in terms of software-defined data centers and hyper-converged infrastructure. So how do you kind of marry these two together and bridge the gap to support your business?
So yes, I would say definitely it has to go through a modernization, but at the same time, we also need to see what is our need in terms of a completely modernized data center infrastructure versus I just want to lift and shift the application and just have to remove certain dependencies within the organization. That is step one. Now, while we do this, and I mentioned in the previous comment as well that the impact analysis has to be done, and then basis that we define what are the applications that are still not ready and cannot be moved. That was the one, and which is where there is some work which is going on, because the setup is large, and then we also need to ensure that there is sufficient business continuity. At the same time, on the B2C front, the customer front, and also on the store front, whatever applications are getting developed, those are traditional, the ones which are getting developed are cloud native. So as a result of which, we have looked for the data centers which are software defined data centers, and the ones we are adopting. We also did, use a Nutanix one earlier in one of the stints, and we found that that also worked well in our case. But from business to business and company to company, everyone has to introspect and then do that analysis even before we take that call. So that's my view over here.
Perfect. I think it makes sense. Business case is pretty important before you do anything. Lovely. So now that we have talked about benefits, let's move forward for discussing certain challenges that you guys have faced in your journey. So when we talk about cloud challenges, two things come at the top of our mind. One is security, and second is cost. By its nature of variability, cost is the second concern, and security is another concern. So we'll focus on security first, and later move on to the cost part. So cloud security, the first question probably that I have, and I'll go around the table, there are a lot of CISOs here, we would love to see their views. Whose responsibility is cloud security? Is it the responsibility of a cloud service provider? Is it the responsibility of a managed service provider who is providing you that cloud service? Or is it the responsibility of the organization who is putting the workload on cloud? So that's the first question that probably we all need an answer from an expert views around that. Second is, how do you design your cloud for resiliency? And what processes and frameworks do you put in place and controls you put in place to ensure that the cloud is secure? And the third part is, what is the role that the information security policy plays in your organization, and how do you segregate that with the actual implementation and the policy formation? So if you can just touch upon things, probably Himal will start with you, and then I'll move to the panel.
Surely. So we strictly follow the cloud adoption framework, and periodically we review the well-architect review for our war programs. And obviously, as per my opinion, it is organization is responsible for the cloud security, because every organization is having the InfoSec security team, and InfoSec security team is having the stringent policy, and we have also built the stringent the access mechanism for our the industry. And for the cloud security perspective, the InfoSec team is periodically do the internal and external audits as well with the certified auditors. And we have segregated our business with criticality and the less criticality. So the security point of view, we have the stringent the patch management policies as well implemented. And the data resiliency is a must. We all aware nowadays that the hackers are attacking the data. Why? Because we aware that all the business initiatives are driven by the data, and the data is very much critical for all the business to run the business continuity. And for this, anywhere and everywhere data availability is must require. I'll give you one example of of our home key. So generally we keep one set of the key with all the family members and one set of the key to our relatives or our neighbors. So which we'll use in a certain scenario, unforced situation, so we can use that key. The likewise, to secure our business data, we should keep the 2 copies of the data and isolate the zone and the data copy at the secured the air gap location, so that in any unforced situation the data should be available to drive the business continuity. And we should aim for the RPO and the RTO, and mandatory DR approach should be in place. So why mandatory DR? Because for the critical applications, DR should be in place. And DR orchestration framework we can build if we have the stringent DR available with us. So this is the data resiliency we should place the strong from the business continuity perspective.
Great, thanks. So have multiple keys, guys, and obviously ownership lies with the organization. That's what I hear from Hemal. Great. Dheeraj, can we move to you?
Yeah, so I majority of the points I agree with Hemant. So basically, of course, the CSP may not take the complete responsibility of the ownership. He just gives you the framework as such to operate on, correct? So the complete responsibility, of course, lies with the organization who is actually owning the cloud, and not the CSP or not even the service partner who is actually providing this service, because they will do only things that you define as per your SOP or the policies, correct? So it's completely at the organization's responsibility to own the cloud, because tomorrow anything happens is your brand, your organization will be asked questions. So it's an organization's responsibility. Can you just ask the second question?
So
what was your second question?
So obviously one is organization responsibility, and how do you build your cloud resiliency to make sure your business continuity is in place?
So in resiliency, I believe cloud is the, not the silver bullet, but it offers a great value. How? I'll just give you an example. Supposedly I have, say, 5 applications which are on the cloud, right? Now, in one zone, I create a 5 applications in the cloud, completely running fine, everything is good. Now, I create another cloud in the different zone within the India. Say, for example, I do, just move the backup, or rather all the data only on the other zone. And I just pay for the minimum on the compute part. So that gives me a very good advantage in terms of my primary applications on the one zone goes down. I can simply start, the compute on the other zone and start my applications over there, because I am actively moving all my data over there. So the cloud offers such excellent benefits when, comes, I have to build the resilience. So that's I believe.
Lovely. So, and these days you also get DR as a service. So that's also another advantage from a business continuity perspective that cloud is offering. Lovely, wonderful. Vasil, why can't we share your thoughts?
So for first questions, I think if everyone might have heard that SEBI has released a recent cybersecurity cloud framework. So it has clearly defined, okay, the regulated entity is responsible for any data hosted on the cloud, whether it doesn't differentiate whether it is a SaaS, PaaS or IaaS or any other services. So it's a responsibility of regulated entity to make sure that data, wherever it has been getting stored, and as well as whenever the company is not doing a business with the particular providers, like if you have taken any SaaS services and if you have discontinued the services, the regulated entity have to make sure that data is getting destroyed. On the resilience part, I think the cloud offered better services compared to the on-prem, but there are certain, again, pros as well as the cons, like in case if you want to store data for the longer period of time, then the cloud adds some cost to that. In terms of resiliency, so whenever organizations is moving any or storing any data, it should be covered as part of a, like recently we have seen a case of ransomware and all that, where the data is getting destroyed. So whenever the organization is storing any data, they should be designing a framework which will be able to bring up the services in case of such scenarios. So like whenever I was referring to my panelists, like applications are having a legacy. So whenever you are deploying any applications over the cloud, it should not have any cloud dependency. So like in case I'm deploying any workload over the AWS environment, and if you want to move that applications, or if I want to discontinue the services of AWS, that same application should be able to run on OCI or Azure environment. So those kind of intercompatibility should be developed whenever we are deploying the resources over the cloud.
Great. I think so the verdict is clear. Cloud security responsibility lies with the organization. So, so that kind of dwells me into the next question. Since the responsibility is of the organization, how are you managing the skill set? So probably Dheeraj, if I can come to you, because this cloud security requires a very specific skill set. And and these days, with ever increasing security landscape, these are very precious pieces, and we don't really find them in the market. So how are you managing that? If you can just throw some light there.
Exactly. So, sorry, unfortunately, even I have my own cheat sheet like you have for the questions I have for my answers. So, see, primarily for the cloud, at least I'll talk about the cloud security skill set. It's one of the, difficult or niche kind of skill set that you have to build. It's not, a crowded skill set like VAPT and all the other security services that we get. It's because it is still evolving as a service or a platform that we are getting. So that's the reason that we have to, as a CISO, stay updated, ourselves with all the different terminologies, the security, services that the cloud service providers offers natively, or the other vendors, and so on and so forth. So that's being said, then we also have to ensure that we do a regular assessment, right, on our cloud platforms. So because that will give you the idea or the visibility on things like what is your attack surface or the exposure to the world. Once you do that, then you can prioritize on the remediation part, and basis that you can take these steps accordingly. Sorry. Going forward, again, the training or rather upscaling yourself and empowering your team is also equally important. So you can't completely dependent on either the cloud service provider or the vendor with whom you're getting these things done, right? So upscaling yourself is also equally important. You being a CISO can't just say that I'm just managing things. You have to be fundamentally clear so that somebody comes up with some, either findings or any of the other technical jargons. So you are aware about what is he talking about. So I believe those are the few things that you have to keep in mind when you're upscaling either yourself or your team, or empowering your team with these certifications or any of the other training materials that you can get.
Great. Sorry, out of syllabus questions, but how are you making sure taking care of the retention part with such a market scenario today?
It's not out of the syllabus. It's a very common question, I believe. It's nothing out of syllabus here. I believe everybody is struggling with that. Even if I have to say honestly with myself, I'm myself struggling with that, because it's not about retaining, your own employee or a team member. Getting a team member is also getting difficult nowadays. Because once you say create a position and try and get these resources from outside, they have 10 different offers in their hand. Now, how do you compete with that? So even if you're going back to your question, retaining your team member is equally difficult as ensuring or giving the assurance that your cloud service or your cloud is secure. So it is that difficult, because no matter how hard you try to retain him, a user or a team member, no matter how many either a training or other benefits that you try to offer, the market is so open today, for at least in terms of cyber security, with the last 5 years that it has blossomed like anything. There's exponentially growth in the cyber security, skill set. So the market is open so far. So even if you don't, it's like a child. No matter how hard you pamper them, Even if somebody else is giving them a chocolate, they'll go for that, right? So the younger guys are like that. So they don't care about, how much time that I spend in a single company, because I believe that's the old school mentality that you spend. I believe many of us, not myself, but the others might be veteran here, even in the audience and the panelists. They might have spent good number of years in the current organization or the previous organization. So that kind of thought process is not there. So it's very difficult, for your team member to retain.
Great. I think this retention topic can go on forever.
I
So
can
probably
add
I'll
that,
just
yeah.
the last
So
one
there
from you.
are two things to that. One is the commercials, other thing is the growth. So normally, because I have stayed in organizations more time, okay, so probably I was getting the kind of opportunities. Even in morning we were discussing, being a part of a conglomerate, we get the opportunity to work in the different groups. So that's also one thing we should take care. Okay, whenever we want to retain the employee, we need to see what exactly the factor on which he is deciding to move out of the organization. So if it is only money, or if he is looking for upscaling. So that also plays a crucial role, I think, for retention.
Great.
So I'll just add one dimension to it. So what we did was we had partners. We had a hybrid approach, like we had a hybrid cloud strategy, wherein in case it's very difficult to retain, we can fall back on the partners with whom we are working. So that's how we created that ecosystem, and which worked well in our case.
Great. I think I'm being mindful of time because this retention topic we probably can discuss for next 1 hour. So probably we'll discuss over the next tea round with audience also around. So I'll move on to the next challenge about cost. So cloud being a variable kind of thing and pay-per-use thing. So I wanted to kind of hear your views on how are you currently managing your cloud cost, what governance and control mechanisms are in place, and are you using any kind of industry tools which gives you visibility and cloud cost management. So probably, Basil, you can probably start with you and we can ask.
Yeah, so we have deployed multiple tools, as Hemant was also mentioning. So we have a complete cloud governance framework where we see, okay, what is the actual resources been getting used. So when we did an audit, we found out, okay, only the EC2 instance was getting used for the particular application. So it doesn't make sense to have such kind of services where you need those services up for the longer period of time. And it is what you can host on the on-prem and bring down the cost. So we also see what is the kind of services being used, and if those things can be like where it will be cheaper, whether hosting those things on-prem or the cloud will be cheaper. Other thing is like the main reason of going on the cloud was to have complete redundancy as well as the cost optimization was one of the key factors. So like in case if we want to have active setup kind of scenarios, then we also have that thin light version of some of the workload hosted on DR side. And whenever we are actually in the DR scenarios, then we use a spot instance for that matter, so that whenever required, the computes are made available, and we also have some kind of configurations so that workloads are made available, and whenever they work, like he was referring to specifically scenario of the HRMS scenarios, where during the end of the year or mid of the year when the compute requirement are more, the instance are spin up automatically and it is taken down automatically whenever it's not required. So that's one of the approach what we take. Other thing is wherever we need to have the data retention for the longer period of time, like Azure Blob Storage, where we can store the data at the offline. So not all data are required on the real-time basis. So those kind of some of the approach what we take to optimize the cost on the cloud.
Lovely. Kishan Kumar, can we hear from you completely on cloud? How are you managing it? How are you telling your CFO, this is my budget for the year? Probably the audience would love to know that.
It's an interesting part because let me say, when I started off with the cloud journey, it was like the power company, myself at home and my daughter or my children. So they have the habit of leaving the bathroom light on. They have the habit of this thing. They wouldn't shut it down and this thing. So you have to, I as a management have to tell them, you're out of it, please shut it, shut the light or close, like, shut the fan. So the cloud mechanism is something similar to that. It is no different. The point is, you got to continuously monitor it. At home, you put tools like that sensor, right? You have a sensor when you walk into that room and the light switches on, but it shuts off only after 5 seconds after you go. So you still have that 5 or 10 seconds after you leave the room, the lights are still on. So you have to go through that entire process of identifying. And there are three parts to it. So this is the first part. The second part of the story is once you are used to the cloud, then there's an upgrade coming in, or there is a migration of an application which comes in. Immediately you tend to set up, okay, let's set up a new setup, move all the things there, create a new one, and then shut it down. So you have the tendency of going into that level. The third important layer is on the data layer. That's whenever you start a data, I hate to use the word data warehouse, but still, wherever you store the data, because today we believe in real-time data. So once you have real-time data, you really need to see how it grows, how it thins, how you manage that, how you purge the data. You can't purge the data, you have to move it to a side. So there are various tools, templates that are available to do that. And once you start doing it over a point in time, so initially you get along with it, then slowly you start bringing it down. But today I think there are tools, and we are also in the process of deploying various tools. That means on a real-time basis, whenever we see there is no usage, that means the CPU utilization, I have 4 CPU, I don't use I use only one CPU, or my memory is much below 5%, 15%. We already have tools which can actually scale down the usage at that point in time, and whenever it goes on a demand. So I think that's the most important thing, somebody to monitor the cloud. So this ties back to my previous response on organization, change and other things. So what you require really is a kind of a guy who is a cloud architect, who goes into each and every detail. You get a report at the end of the day that the CPU utilization has been so much, your memory utilization has been much, these are the IO inputs, this is the bus structure. But the point is, when you actually get into those details, you really need to see, can you do the scaling up and down? You know, in most cases, like in the financial services, at least business, you still have this process of end of day, which I find it ridiculous even today. But you still have that process of end of day, and then you do that. Luckily, in the securities, wealth, investment market, we don't have a choice because we have to wait for the mark to market to happen, and that happens. So real-time stock market predictions and other things are just information. You can't do anything on that. But the point is, how do you use that, and how can you make those changes into those systems, and then you can bring the billing down over a point in time. Once you have learned the art of seeing how the tools run, and today with new AI and other stuff, you can actually predict that during the day, these many systems have only this much utilization, and you can subsequent. And we've been pretty successful at that. I think when we started off, everybody just accepted in the first 2 years, but then when the business pressure comes, everybody starts looking at you as if you are the main culprit. And anyway, IT is the biggest this thing after the payroll, probably, or less than the payroll. So whatever you say. But the point is, at some point in time, you can bring it down. And I still believe that with these new data centers and things coming up, the cost of the cloud will go down, and your billings can also be managed. The point is, what is it that you're looking at? Like, let's say resiliency, keywords, VR, disaster recovery, backups, how do you want to store it, how you put it on demand, when do you want to do it? So I would have saved a huge cost if I have not got a real-time data center, if I have set up a data center in Chennai or any other place where I have to do a backup. There is a network cost, there is a system cost, there is a data center cost, there are other costs which go into play. So actually you need to actually create that business case, or really need to understand how you are going to do it. But the most important thing is the timeliness, and I think if you are able to use tools which are available today, which can directly look at, and you can actually, if you are, I'm sure on AWS, Azure and all these things, there are tools available, and then you write your own scripts on top of that to actually review how much of utilization is there, bring it down, go up. It's a complex thing, because once the bill comes up, you got to match it with the log that you have brought it down, because the billing doesn't happen, the vendor's billing. But luckily today, since it's automatic billing, you actually look at each of those computes during the hour, and you can actually make a lot of difference. And I think it's time people start using that and understand that, rather than just making a statement, because the advantages of a cloud far, far exceeds what people can think of. So
Right.
That's where I look at it.
Right. So I have a red screen in front of me which says time's up. I really enjoyed interacting with all of you here, and it was an honor to moderate such an eminent panel. And I hope all of you have found certain take out from the market. Do we have a time for questions, or should we wind up? We wind up. Probably the panelists are available, so during networking breaks, please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.